Okay, so everyone's beginning to log in now. I've got participants coming in, which is great. Apologies for the late start. We were just having a bit of fun with streaming live to Facebook. So it's all very exciting because not only are we talking to you here, but we're also going live on Facebook. So yes, exciting stuff. So Louise, no swearing. So just want to thank you all so much for attending. The session today we're going to be doing is called Managing Your Stress Levels, and we're going to be looking at strategies and techniques. Now, I am delighted to have Louise Adams with me. Louise did some training with me a couple of years ago on how to be a trainer, and Louise is also a wellbeing expert, and she is absolutely fantastic, and I love chatting to her. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. So we're going to have a quick look at the agenda. Now, what I want to just mention is that everybody is on mute. And if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. Also, you can chat to us. I'm going to be behind the scenes while Louise is talking. So if you've got any questions, please do ask me, or happily help. And also, if you think of any questions while we're presenting, just pop them in the Q&A box and we will address them at the end. Do add them in, because if you're anything like me, I often forget halfway through what I was going to ask. And we're also going to have a couple of polls which we'd like you to get involved with. And so that should be quite exciting. And we will share the results at the end through social, can't even speak. It should be Friday, it's lockdown. And also, yeah, so we've got the Q&A session at the end. Everyone is in lots of different situations in terms of where they are in the world and what they're experiencing with this amazing situation that we're in with the pandemic. So if there's anything that you need from us while we're having this chat, then please do get in touch, because we are here to help. And it's lovely to see people that I know on the list as well. So this is being streamlined to Facebook. Don't worry, they can't see you. They just see me and Louise. So no further ado, I'd like to hand over to Louise now.
Thanks, Lou. Hi, everybody. Nice to, well, I can't actually see you all, but nice to have you here today. So as Lou said, I've worked with Lou now a few years ago, and I've got a great connection with Lou. So thank you for having me here. So I kind of wear two hats, really. So you would have seen me advertise as Petals Training, but I also, for the last 18, 19 years, have had a therapy business, which is called Wherever You Are, Just Be, really with the essence of, certainly at the moment, just be. And it is a very difficult time for lots of people. So I'm hopefully throughout this going to be able to sort of to give you some generic advice. More specific advice, I can offer one-to-one support after this, but I think for now it's just a case of making this accessible to all of you, really. Some of my wording will be quite localized, you know, in terms of, I know this is going out to potentially places all over the world, so bear with me. We come from sunny South Wales, so some of my geographical information will be quite local, so bear with me on that one. I appreciate that we're all in a slightly different time.
And that is South Wales in the UK, and not in...
Yeah. That's a great start. In the sunny UK, might I add. So just to introduce myself, so as I said, I wear two different hats, really. So I've got a training company where I teach people how to be trainers within their own industry. So sort of how to train others, how to have the confidence to stand up in front of others as well and teach. I teach accredited and non-accredited courses, and at the moment we've transferred those online, so there's an option to learn online if you wanted to. But as a therapist, I think this is really why I'm here, because for a long time now, for the past 18 years, I've worked in and out of the NHS, working with our Velindre Cancer Centre here in Cardiff and the Teenage Cancer Trust as a therapist. I've also worked in Bupa, private healthcare, TV productions, the West End theatres in London, and a lot of my work as a therapist has been either offering physical therapies to manage stress, and more importantly, the mental and emotional therapies, such as emotional freedom technique, TFT and NLP, and life coaching as a way to get people back on track, really. So quite a varied skill set, if you like, and experience. But I think as well, what I wanted to say is that, as much as I'm a therapist, I'm also human. And I've had my own experience of stress in the past. So 17 years ago, after a work-related incident, I ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder, which was quite a shock because I'm probably the least stressed person, according to my friends. But it can happen to anybody. So I had to rely on antidepressants at the time, counselling, took everything on offer. And I think it was that sort of life-changing part of my life that led me into some of the more solution-focused therapies that I now deliver. So a lot of my patients, I work with stress and anxiety conditions on a one-to-one basis, and it's very solution-focused in that people will come to me with maybe fears, phobias, OCD, panic attacks, depression, whatever that might be. And rather than counselling that can take quite a long time, our sessions are usually 1 to 2 sessions, and people are sort of fixed and ready to go. So I've got a passion for helping people. And as I said, I'm hoping that I'll be able to help you as much as I can. Okay. So playing around with, this is me now playing around with my iPad and learning how to write on pictures, which again is brilliant for me because I'm not usually technical savvy. But if anyone has ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I thought this was quite relevant at the moment. I think depending on where you are in terms of your own stress at the moment, maybe you're working from home, maybe you're not working from home, and maybe you've got no work to do at the moment and you're just perhaps homeschooling your children. You might be a carer, you might be anybody at all. But I think what I've realised through talking with friends and colleagues in the past 3 to 4 weeks, certainly since lockdown, is that a lot of people feel that they're stuck. And this is why I brought Maslow into this, really. Bit of humour really at the bottom, but in our physiological needs at the moment, which are our basic needs, food, water, warmth and rest, we've also got panic buying of toilet paper, which was has certainly been a big issue for those of you that are shopping at the moment, and panic buying. And it very much feels that, certainly from speaking to others at the moment in relation to stress management, people feel stuck at the bottom of this pyramid. And that's okay. That's okay. And I think it's almost like wanting to give you permission that it's okay to feel that you're at the bottom of this pyramid at the moment, because we all are. We're all in the same boat. We're all in this together. And I think, for the first time in history, really, we can actually say we're all in this together. But obviously we all have different ways of internalizing all this at the moment. And I think for those of you that are working from home, a lot of people I'm talking to at the moment, their feeling is, how am I going to reach my full potential when I'm stuck, working from home? I've got children in the background, and and all I would say there is just to be honest. We're all in this together. It's a really strange environment to be in. It is unique, and certainly in terms of when we look at this pyramid, I think the biggest thing that people are missing at the moment are the psychological needs. Our belongingness, our love needs, our friendships, our relationships. Certainly for the first time I'm ever aware of, I'm not able to go and give my parents a hug. I can't give my friends a hug. I can't go and see them, and that leads to feelings of isolation. And that's difficult in itself. But then on the plus side, and I always will look on the plus side of where we are in terms of stress, is that we now have access to a much broader, and certainly for me, because I've had to learn how to use IT quite quickly in the last 6 weeks, is that we do still have the ability to socialise. So we've got lots of online facilities now. So we've got FaceTime, Skype, House Party. you know, and all of a sudden we're able to socialize in a different way. And I think all I would say with that one is to embrace that, you know, because we are in these times, we are on lockdown, you know, but we don't have to be locked down completely. You know, the world is still out there for us. We can still connect, you know, and even down to some of the house party games that I've been part of. We've even had some that almost turned into a fitness session, you know, with sort of people saying, right, okay, first one back to the screen with an item beginning with the letter A, or the first one back to the screen with something from their garden. So you end up running around, you're laughing, you're having fun, you know, and it's, you know, we're having to do these very different things at the moment. So just be kind to yourself is the kind of message in that. And also within this, it's important to identify as well that not all stress is bad. You know, we have good stress too. It's all very well running a stress management session, but I think we also need to realize that there's some good things that make us stress as well. So, you know, very much the same as when we face negative stress, the physiological effects in our body are very similar to when we have positive stress as well. So, you know, when we feel excited, for example, our pulse quickens, our hormones surge. There's no threat of fight or flight, and yet that there's still an element of stress. So I think for me, it's been focusing on good stress, okay, and trying to find things that we can control. And I think that to me is very much what this stress management has been about for me in terms of sharing with others, is that at the moment, a lot of people feel that there's a lot of things they can't control, which are sort of preventing them, if you like, reaching their full potential. But more importantly, there are things we can control. So, you know, at the moment, there's an exercise you can do at home actually called the circle of control, where you do 2 concentric circles. The external circle is things that are outside of your control. So things like the virus, things like job losses, things like the news, you know, perhaps not seeing your friends and family. But more importantly is your internal circle of control is things that you can control yourself. So, you know, you can take control of your own health and well-being. You can find fun things to do. You might have to be creative, but you can still find them. You know, turn off the news. That's certainly been a big one for me in terms of my own stress management, is not tuning in to the fear every 5 minutes, because there's certainly enough of it. You know, limiting social media perhaps, being kind to others. You know, when you think of belongingness and love needs in terms of Maslow, we can still be kind to others. And I think more than ever, certainly this time has shown me, certainly as a neighbour, is that I'm reconnecting with neighbours that I haven't seen, which is ridiculous because we live next door to each other. But life keeps us so busy that we're apart. And this time, you know, especially the Thursday evening, 8 o'clock clap for the NHS, we're all out there with our pots and pans and connecting, you know, so I feel as if we're still able to keep within this hierarchy and as I said, just be kind to yourself. Okay, so over to Lou now.
Right, guys. Okay, so we have a poll that we'd like you to complete. Now, what we'd like you to do is grab your phone or on a browser window, go to menti.com, MENTI. There's also a QR code on the screen which you can scan. And I will add as well a direct link for you in the chat box. You can see that Megan has already said hello in the chat, and I said hello back. But in there, I've added a direct link as well. So you can either click on that link directly, or you can scan the QR code or go to menti.com and then use the code 610394. And what we'd like to do is we would like you to add words to tell us how your body or your mind is letting you know that they're stressed. And so we've had some people fill them in already. You won't see the results. You can get them emailed to you, but once we collect all these, we will add them at the end. But we've already had some come through, and you can have up to 10 choices. You'll see that there are 10 boxes there. Great, you see people just started adding them in. So the ones that we've had already: breathlessness, increased heart rate, reduced concentration, headache, which is because it's a word cloud, when something's been mentioned more than once, the words get bigger. So headache is quite big, nausea is quite big, hair falling out, spots, tiredness. So they're the ones that we've had so far. We've got more coming in. This is ever increasing. Wow, look at this, lots coming in now. Eczema, tight chest, angry. Yeah, I know that. So we're going to leave that there for you. You're more than welcome, if you want to share that through social media to see how other people are feeling. And also, if you want to take a bit of time to add some more in, then please do. You're more than welcome. But yeah, I think the biggest ones there, they're quite significant, Louise, in terms of what people are feeling. So I'm now going to hand back over to Louise.
Thanks, Lou. So I thought that poll was quite an interesting one, really, just to give you a bit of input yourself, really, into how stress affects you, because stress really does affect us so differently. So certainly for me, when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress all those years ago, my symptom was actually nausea and headaches. That was my original symptom. I didn't have emotional symptoms. And that was the biggest shock for me, was that my body let me know I was stressed way before my mind caught up. You know, so I just wanted to show you just a few symptoms that and how stress can affect us, and it often surprises people. So I know Lou just said now one of the biggest ones to come out of there was breathlessness, and I think at the moment certainly breathlessness and chest pain are two very significant symptoms of stress, and ironically they are symptoms of this COVID-19 virus. And I think in particular that's quite worrying for people. I've done it myself, you know. Initially, when I was plugged into the news 24/7, I remember walking upstairs on one of the first days and feeling slightly breathless and thinking, oh my goodness, that's it, I've got it. You know, because we do, our thoughts spiral and create illness in the body quite quickly. Certainly, so often people are surprised to see that stress affects the body so significantly. Often people are certainly aware that stress can cause anxiety and depression and perhaps panic attacks and OCD, and certainly they're a lot of the symptoms I see as a therapist. But what I'm seeing more and more of is people with chronic back pain, fatigue, perhaps digestive problems, and they're the ones that tend to surprise people the most, and yet they're huge in terms of the body signifying that you're under stress. Now, as a therapist, it's difficult at the moment because I've got a lot of people with back problems that I can't reach. And with probably 90% of my patients with back problems, their back problems are associated with stress. So they've had every test going, you know, the doctors have said, no, there's nothing wrong with your spine, and there generally isn't. They then come to me as a therapist and we look at the emotional root cause of that back pain. And by offering the one-to-one sort of stress management therapies that I offer, I would say probably about 8 times out of 10, people's back pain significantly reduces. So I just wanted to make you aware, really, that stress can sort of hit us in the strangest of ways. Don't be alarmed. Your body is doing what it's supposed to do, okay? And it's entirely normal. And if anyone wants to speak to me one-to-one, you can feel free on that one. As I said, I'm trying to keep this very generic today so that everybody gets something from that. Very quickly, and I'm not going to stay on these things too often because I don't want to make this too clinical. Hence why I've drawn all over these pictures to make it more personal. The stress cycle, you know, we've got these stressful thoughts. Stress hormones are released into the body, and then the body often tells us, yes, there's danger. I'm not going to spend too long on this. As I said, I don't want to make it too clinical, but I did want to just very quickly go over the fight, flight and freeze part of stress. Lots of people are already familiar with fight. So this is an innate response that we've developed as a way of escaping an overwhelming threat. Now, previously, it would have been sort of running away from a tiger or running away from danger back in the day when we were living off the land and goodness knows what. But I think more than anything now, this is the flight responses triggered in our daily lives. And certainly at the moment, we're faced with this invisible threat. And it's natural that we want to flight and we want to get away from that. There are some emotions that tend to come up within that, such as irritability, short-tempered, maybe defensive, maybe sensitive, and that's entirely normal. We've got our fight and flight response. We've also got freeze, which is where perhaps we feel numb, quite detached, perhaps we feel like giving up a bit easily. Again, these are all normal responses to what's going on at the moment, because this is an invisible kind of threat, if you like. But there are ways to manage that, which is why I'm not going to spend much longer on that one, because you can all read up about fight and flight, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. But again, if there's any questions, obviously you can ask me on that one. Things like this make more important, are more important. A lot of people at the moment, certainly if you're working from home, are maybe working longer hours than you previously were, and because you're working from home, maybe that's easier to do. Maybe you're not able to work effectively from home because you've got maybe young children in the background, or certainly for me, I've got 4 dogs. And they certainly let me know I'm working from home, usually barking and doing their doggy choir, which with 4 of them is quite interesting. But I think for me, within that second saying, wherever your focus goes, energy flows. Your energy is your currency. Spend it wisely, spend it well and invest it wisely. And this is the first thing I realised quite early when we went into lockdown, was that in the first 3 weeks, I probably went into freeze mode. I shut down a little bit voluntarily. The sun was shining. I love the sun. I'm solar powered. So I spent 3 weeks in the garden on a holiday. I painted everything in sight. I got a great tan. But part of me realised that I was also procrastinating. Part of me realised that that was potentially part of my own stress response, was just to shut down and get away from it all. And again, as I said in the previous slide, be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to do that, because it's okay. As long as we come back, that's the main thing. So I realised that potentially I was procrastinating in that first part. I also realised, which is why I put the saying up, wherever your focus goes, energy flows, is that I spent the first probably 2 to 3 weeks watching the news at 5 o'clock every day, and really sort of zooming into that and realizing that actually that was really depleting me. That's where my energy was starting to dissipate. So I've gone back to what I usually do to manage stress. So things like getting up at the same time every day. I spent time with Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way years ago, on a course with her. And for those of you that know her, she talks about writing pages. So you write 3 pages a day, and you just literally wake up in the morning and just write, just brain dump, put things onto paper. Now, I've found that in the last maybe week or so really useful to refocus, because it's allowed me to just get rid of the things that are in my head at the moment, practice what I preach in terms of where my focus goes, my energy flows. And really start to go back to what I do to manage stress. So my writing pages are certainly a big part of that. Meditation is, and eating nutritious food. Because I think in the first 3 weeks, I probably did what everyone else has done. And when I realised we'd gone into shutdown, I think I ate everything I bought for those first 3 weeks of lockdown. But obviously you can't sort of to keep going with that. Okay, so this is only a brief one really about the story of the 2 wolves, if anyone's ever heard of it, and I can send this as a link. Again, it's where your focus goes, your energy flows, and it's very much adding on to that. It's a sort of a Cherokee story about the fact that we've each got two wolves inside us. One is negative, one is positive. And the little boy asks his father, you know, which wolf wins? And the one that wins is the one we focus on. So even for me writing this was, you know, I need to focus on my good wolf. I need to focus on the positive things that have come out of this lockdown and not focus on the negatives, which, you know, I'll be honest with you, I did potentially do that at the very beginning. Okay, so as I said, if anyone wants that as a little handout, then I'm sure Lou will sort that out for you and send that over to you. But it's a nice little story to illustrate the point. So back over to Lou now for another poll.
Yeah, because you know we love a good poll. We just like to check in with you and check that you're there. Okay, so we've got a poll that we would like you to fill in, and just to let you know, Louise, I enabled the video, so you can show yourself now if you like.
Oh, can I? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so, okay, so we've got a poll that's come up right now. I did think that when we set up this poll, we could have put some fun terms here, but I didn't. So how you feel, how stressed do you feel? And not specifically right now, because in a moment, Louise is going to cover some really nice hints and tips. I'm just going to put my video on, and some strategies that you can do. How are you feeling now? I kind of laughed because I wanted to check, did I put that last option as something something really terrible, but I can see I just put other. So very stressed, a little stressed, I don't know, because I'm not sure who I am really anymore. But,
yeah, I think we've all done that.
Yeah, last night I went down the side of the house to pop something in the bins, and I just watched the news, and I just watched how many more people have passed away in the UK, and I just sobbed.
Yeah.
So I love that we've also got some people who are not feeling stressed, which is really great, and we've got people who are feeling stressed and people who are feeling a little stressed. And actually from the sessions that we've done recently, when we've been talking about remote working, and we've done word clouds, and we've asked people how they're feeling, like give us the top 3 words about how you're feeling, a lot of them have been really negative. So actually I have to say that I am pleasantly surprised that people haven't gone for the very stressed, which you know, warms my heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do add into that if there's anyone that hasn't had chance yet. We'll just leave it up there for a few seconds more, and then we'll end the polling. But it looks like 25% say they're stressed, 50% say a little stressed, and then not 1%, what's that? That's 25% say not stressed. Okay, so we're getting to that now. So thank you so much for voting. That's pretty much most of you voted there, which is great. Okay, I'm going to hand you back over to Louise, so you can see both of us now.
Yeah, I can see myself now.
I think, Louise, you're actually Lou, but I think for the sake of this, we're Lou and Louise. Because it's an international bunch run webinar, I'm like, I'm Lou.
I'm Louise. Know your place. Okay, so moving on then. Oh, actually my clicker's decided to not play now, so bear with me. Okay, so more importantly then, instead of me rabbiting on, these are some techniques now. Now with maybe a couple of them, it will be better to have a video to send you later, so that you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, always one more to come up breathing. So I'm sure we can sort that out. So if people need a revision of any of these, so bear with me. So I will go through them quite quickly now. How are we doing for time? Okay, right, okay, so quick flash through now. So eating healthy and exercise, it goes without saying. It really does. Like I said earlier on, you know, in that first 3 weeks of lockdown, I did stockpile, you know, I did buy extra food, and I ate it all quite early. And then realised, actually, why am I not practicing what I preach? So, you know, I do cook very, very healthy meals, actually, and I do batch cook. And that's been, for me, I love batch cooking anyway. I freeze my food and it's all very nutritious, but it's the time to actually do more of that has just been bliss, you know, and certainly people around me are benefiting from that food because I'm feeding others at the same time and looking after others around me. So for me, there's been a double-edged sword to that, in that it's actually given me a purpose to help others in that respect. It's always nice when your friends phone you and say, oh, thanks for the meal, Lou, you know, it's lovely and healthy and it's the best I've eaten for a week. Whoops. You know, do try and do that. And as I've said there, your diet is not only what you eat, you know, it's what you watch, it's what you listen to, it's what you read, and it's the people you spend time with. Now, I know, obviously, spending time with people is difficult at the moment, but even the fact that we can socialise with people online, just make sure you're socialising with the right people, you know, people that are going to lift you in some way, you know. So be mindful of what you watch. As I said, the news originally, I was tuning in literally 5 o'clock every day, and I don't watch the news. I never have done, never entertained me, and it brought me down. So I've stopped doing that. So yeah, you know, I'm not going to lecture people on this. These are just reminders. You know, and when it comes to exercise, we can still exercise, we can still get out and about, which leads me on to walking, and the benefits of walking. Now, at the moment, certainly in South Wales, in the UK, we are allowed to walk, thank goodness. If the restrictions get tighter, I'm sure that might be reduced, but certainly for now, we're able to get out and enjoy it. And certainly for me, that's been my stress relief. It really has. So, you know, it can reduce fatigue. Now, I can't see the words coming out because I've got my videos in the way, so bear with me. I'm going to see if I can move those. Oh, there we go. Improves self-esteem, raises endorphins. We need these happy hormones. Weight reduction. So it's a great one for weight reduction and sort of toning up. Can reduce cholesterol, improve your cardiovascular fitness, and of course, it's a distraction as well. It can be social interaction. I've left that up there because technically maybe 1 or 2 people can still walk together 2 meters apart, but even still, you know, getting out on your own. And I've shown those pictures because that signifies a time for me that post illness, I managed to climb Snowdon in Wales, in North Wales, but it was purely because I did get out every day and did a little bit of walking until I built up that fitness. Okay, so that's why I brought it up. And that's me nearly at the top. So again, you know, why do we walk? It's vital for maintaining mental fitness and reducing stress. As I said, for me, I mean, I've seen, because I'm walking from home, which is what we're allowed to do in Wales, I'm seeing parts of my hometown I've never seen before. But I'm also seeing parts of nature that I didn't realise were there. Because
just to mention, if any of you are accustomed to a TV program here in the UK called Gavin and Stacey. There. Louise actually lives in the town where Gavin and Stacey in Wales is filmed. So she lives in Barry.
I do. I live in Gavin and Stacey land. And actually, funny enough, I was showing a friend of mine the other day, and I said, "Oh, that hill there, the steepest hill in Barry, is where Gavin and Stacey was filmed." So yeah, it is. We've got a great town actually to walk around, and certainly lots of reminders of Gavin and Stacey. Yeah, so it's. I'm not going to lecture you on this. And as I said, this can be available as a list for you later on anyway. But it's really low risk. It's accessible, and as I said, for me, it is certainly a big stress buster. Now, the reason I'm putting this slide up, now let's go for a walk and add mindfulness to our walk. This came from actually a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago that was feeling very, very stressed, feeling very, very isolated. They live on their own. They are finding it really tough. They already suffer with stress and depression. And I said to them, look, I'm running this stress webinar. You know, what would you ask me if you were part of the webinar? And they said to me, I'd like to know how I get out of my head. So we did this. Okay, Lou's going to send this to you later on. And this is very much a mindfulness activity. And it was to, and I say list here, but we spoke about it. So we walked over to our local beach, and without him knowing, I was just sort of saying, you know, what 5 things can you see around you? We kind of looked around, and it really gets you to stop and smell the roses, quite literally. What can you feel? You know, what can you hear? What can you smell? What can you taste? And then after we did that, and we sat in front of the sea and we were watching the sea and listening to it. And I said, you know, how do you feel? He said, God, I don't feel like I'm in my head anymore. You know, and that was therapy for free, because he's a mate of mine and we were walking together. But it's quite interesting that just those simple things can be added to make that walk much more mindful then, you know, and work on your stress levels. Try it. As I said, feedback. Let us know how it goes, but it's certainly a useful one. Okay, breathing. You know, I'm not going to lecture you on breathing. Everybody knows how to breathe. However, in lots of the kind of therapies and the therapeutic environment I work in, breathing is one of the first things we say to people for managing their stress. You know, obviously it's important to live. We need breathing to live, but it's also a great stress reliever. Okay, and as I said, any of these lists can be sent over to you afterwards, so don't worry if they flick up and, you know, we flick off them. I'm going to go back to that one. One of the ones we use quite often is it's called square breathing, where we activate the belly breathing by focusing our attention on breathing through the tummy. It can take practice if you've never done this before. Watch a child breathing. A child naturally, their belly rises and falls. So I know Lou's got a little one. Watch her next time, or watch her belly rise and fall. So they've got breathing off to a fine art. They really know how to do it. But when we're stressed, we breathe from our chest, you know, and even talking, you know, even talking like this, I'm aware that I'm chest breathing because I'm talking, and that's normal. But where possible, certainly when I'm working from home, I have little alarms on my phone that go off periodically, and I set them deliberately. And every time those alarms go off, provided I'm not on a call, I will stop exactly what I'm doing and focus on my breathing just for 2 minutes. And I breathe in through my belly, slowly, deliberately. So I breathe in, I hold the breath for a couple of seconds, I breathe out really slowly, and then hold the breath at the end for a couple of seconds. And I just do that just for a couple of cycles, just for maybe 2 or 3. If you're not used to breathing like that, it can make you dizzy. So make sure you're sat down or lying down when you first practice breathing. Okay, it isn't without its issues if you've never done that before. Okay, so so practice that, and as I said, we can send any of these over to you, because I'm very aware that this is kind of a whistle stop tour today. But like I said, set yourself alarms on your phone. You know, literally every hour, let your phone remind you, stop, breathe, take a few nice deep breaths, or whichever method of breathing works better for you. And there are different ones. The square breathing technique we use, again, is breathing in for 4 seconds, holding the breath for 4 seconds. We then breathe it out for 4 seconds, and then we hold for 4 seconds again. Now, I personally can't breathe like that. I have to design my own amount of seconds that work for me. So don't be governed by numbers, okay? Because it really makes breathing much harder, okay? We certainly don't want to do that. We want to make it easy. Another very quick technique, or a couple of techniques really, for managing stress. One of them is called the K27 points. And the other one is holding the emotional stress relief points. Now, the K27s, I'm hoping that's quite a clear picture. They're at the bottom of your collarbone. So where your collarbone meets, and you've got the 2 bobbly bits, these are actually the 27th pair of acupuncture points on the kidney meridian. So there's a bit of meridian work for you there in Chinese medicine. And by tapping them on a regular basis, it can make us feel more energetic. So if fatigue has taken over as a symptom of stress, tapping your K27s is a way to bring your energy back up. And again, when I feel like I'm low in energy, so I'm going to lower mine slightly down. If I'm low in energy, it could be anywhere. I'll literally tap these K27s. It can help with clearer thinking. It can help your focus and concentration, and also improve your vision. Okay, so if you're getting fuzzy eyes from using the computer, and helps you, it can make you less susceptible to people's energies around you. So if you're feeling like you're on top of each other, just to go away for 2 seconds and tap your K27s can just release that stress and sort of re-energize you, if you like. So again, if anyone...
Does it matter if I keep tapping permanently?
yeah, if you tap permanently, you will be bruised, and I will say that. And often when you tap them, they already feel tender, which is a great indicator that they need to be cleared. So actually tapping them clears them. That's effectively what happens. Okay, so practice it. It's a great one. I use this when I'm in situations where I just feel fatigued or just feel like I'm in a brain fog, which can happen quite often when you're working from home. And if I just need that energy boost, I don't drink caffeine because it doesn't agree with me. So I tap my K27s instead. Okay. The second ones I'm referring to there are the emotional stress relief points. And actually these are, again, our energy medicine. And just by holding them, it's a very natural thing to do anyway, you know, when we're stressed. Think back to school. I spent a lot of time doing this in school, leaning on my desk with my teacher saying, Louise, what are you doing? Actually, unwittingly, I didn't know I was doing it. I was holding my stress relief points. They're called neurovascular points. Going to quickly flick. I'm going to flick through this one, but I can send this as something for people to do afterwards. This is a quick exercise to initially tense the muscles in the body, but relax them very quickly. It's actually difficult to do when you're sat up, which is why I'm going to flash through it and get Lou to send this out later for you. We're also going to send this one out as a video, the tapping, because this is probably one of the most efficient techniques in managing stress. It's very, very quick. It comes from one of the therapies I do, something called thought-filled therapy, where I use it to help people banish fears, phobias, anxiety, PTSD, lots and lots of different things. But this one particular technique is what I will give to a patient to take home with them. Okay, it's very, very effective, very, very quick. I use it in the hospital a lot with patients. When they were being cannulated for chemo and they'd be very, very stressed, I would do this technique with them, and it enabled them to then have their needle. Okay, so I'm going to show that one later because that needs a little video for you to practice. Sleep. Okay, I'm not going to go into the theory of sleep. I've just put that up there as a picture. This is something that a lot of people are suffering with at the moment is sleep disturbance. And again, all I'm going to say with sleep, without lecturing you, is routine is key. You know, I think a lot of people are, myself at times included, are guilty of thinking we're on a holiday, but we're not. You know, for those of us that are working from home, this is not a holiday. And for me, when I did slip initially with my sleep, the only thing that's got me back is getting back into routine. So going to bed at the same time every night, getting up at the same time every morning. I'm not saying I don't snooze, because I do, but generally I'm up by at least 7:30, 8 o'clock every day. Even if I don't have a lot to do that day, waking up at that time every day and going to bed at the same time every day has regulated my sleep again. And it's really important to us at the moment, you know, for stress relief, full stop. If we're not sleeping, that makes it much harder as well. Again, focus on your breathing to help you sleep as well, to calm the nervous system. Avoid sort of alcohol, caffeine, certainly late at night. Maybe not having heavy meals. There's lots and lots of different advice, and I don't want to lecture you, so I'm not going to, but I can equally send you some bits and pieces. And as I said, we've already covered breathing. I covered that slightly earlier because I wanted to, more than anything, really give you guys a chance to ask some questions. So here is my certificate of appreciation for you all. So thank you for listening to us. And then back to Lou.
If I can unmute myself. Great, thank you so much, Louise. That's absolutely fascinating. I'm really stressed at the moment, so I love that stuff. And I think I'm just going to spend all my time tapping. And I have to say, I was like, where is the knobbly bits? Oh, the knobbly bits. I found them. And I was, yeah. So I'm going to be tapping them a lot. Okay, so we'd like to now look at some questions. I know that we'd had one from Emily saying that not working helps, and I think that was probably related to the poll that we did talking about stress.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be in that position right now, but boss, and that would mean I'd have to furlough myself, and well, I could. But, so we're going to ask any questions. Please do, in the Q&A box, add in any questions that we've got. We've got a few here that we're going to have a look at.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you'd specifically like to take advantage of this time with Louise and ask her anything specific to you. If you do want to just have it dealt with privately, you can see that you've got email addresses on here. So you can reach out to either myself or Louise directly. Also, in the Q&A box, you have the facility to be able to send a message specifically to us, and we can answer you privately. So let's have a look at some questions that we've had come through. Okay, so, and it was really helpful when I mentioned about that I put the link to the word cloud into the chat. I realized that I sent the message to the panelists, which is Louise, and I didn't send it to everyone. So I did put it in there just in case you didn't have a chance to answer it. And I also added into the chat box the 5 points that Louise had mentioned to do as a takeaway. List 5 things you can see, list 5 things you can, she was talking about going for a walk. Do copy and paste that so you've got it, or just open up the chat, pick with your phone, or take a screenshot if you're on your computer. Okay, so Louise, I've got a few questions here. So do you have any quick tips for managing stress due to noisy remote working environments?
Noisy remote working environments, okay. So is this about sort of distraction noise in the background? Is this working with noise around you?
Yeah, so it sounds to me like that would be right, and it would be like if you've got children at home, if you've got your partner at home, and then maybe they're on the phone on calls, or
of course
it may specifically be.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because everyone's different with this, but I think communication's key. You know, so if you do have your partner around you, you do know that you're going to be on an important call. It's depending on the age of your child as well. So like I said, you know, I've got 4 dogs that every now and again they'll go into doggy choir in the background. And I think my thing here is just to be honest with people. You know, we are working in the strangest of times, and we are going to have distractions. And I think it's very authentic and very honest to say to people, look, I'm really sorry, but I am working from home. This will happen to me. And almost sort of normalize that. You know, normalize that as, do you know what, this is okay, because we're all in the same boat, without having to be embarrassed, because that embarrassment of noise makes you so stressed, doesn't it? You know, that just adds to your stress. So I just use humor. You know, I'm so sorry about my dogs. They're auditioning for Britain's Got Talent right now. I've done my best to ask them to be quiet, but they're just not listening. And I think that all you can do is obviously try and minimize that risk of sound. So for me, I've come upstairs into my office to work, because I know that if I did sit downstairs, the dogs would see me and the quiet would start. So for me, it is about I'm able to then get myself in a quieter place. But then I'm still aware that I've got outside traffic that also, you know, people might be able to hear as I'm online today. So I think for me, it's just about being honest. It's about allocating time as well with your children. So perhaps if they're a little bit older, it's about that trade-off with, right, mummy or daddy's got to do this right now, but look at the clock, and when it reaches 1 o'clock, we're going to down tools and we're going to be together. And I think that's come out of lots of conversations I've had with people, is that you have to give yourself time and permission to have breaks. Because by not having those breaks, by sitting at the computer and life takes over, your family are in the background perhaps feeling abandoned, and that brings its own stress up to the table. So I think be honest, allocate time so that you can say to your children, look, when you know, especially if you've got young children, when the hand reaches 12, I will be with you for an hour, and be with them for an hour. Okay, so there's no direct answer to that one other than just try and manage it as best you can.
Well, it's personal, isn't it, to the people? And we did this last week in the remote working one with distractions, and then I just did that, and then my daughter appeared at my office doors crying her eyes out, and my office is at the end of the garden, so she actually is 2.5, and she got here, she escaped from my husband. So you know, these things happen when you do a live session.
You do.
But yeah, I think absolutely right. You shut the door if you can. Find a space that you can go to. Everyone's a lot more accepting now of having noise around, which is really helpful. And I completely agree. Be open and honest. I mean, my child climbs all over me. Sometimes I turn my video off because it's like I'm working, but I'm just like, I really don't want my client to see me with my child.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've got another one here, which is, do you have any suggestions for reducing workplace stress when working in a big open plan office? And I think that is incredibly important because so many people will suffer from that. And for people
in an open plan office, how they can reduce their stress.
Reducing workplace stress when working in a big open plan office.
Escape where possible.
Say what?
Escape where possible. So again, it's using these strategies to literally escape that environment. So we all have to have, I mean, I always remember working in an open plan office myself, and I was dreadful with noise because I've got a low level hearing problem. And if a certain tone is around me and I'm on a phone, I cannot hear who's on the phone. And I used to say to my colleagues, guys, please just let me have this call. So again, it was communication for me. It was very much, guys, I'm really sorry. And I blamed it on me and said, look, I've got a bit of a hearing issue. When I'm on the phone, I really just need to concentrate. Do you mind being aware of that? It doesn't always work. So for me, mine was more about using these stress techniques. So going out for a walk, you know, and I used to remember lots of colleagues used to have fag breaks, and they were able to have what I call now de-stress breaks whenever they wanted to. You know, if they felt stressed, they just went out for a cigarette. But as that has become less acceptable in the workplace, we are now losing that sort of excuse then to get away from our desk and manage stress, and we all need to do that. And I used to call it my natural break, you know. So my colleagues would go off for a fag, and I'd say, just off for a natural break. And they're like, where are you going? And I did. I would go outside. I'd go and find a quiet place. You know, sometimes it might even be the car park, you know, if I was on my own. And I would do these tapping techniques. So the tapping techniques, the breathing, you know, that breathing one, you can do that anywhere. You don't have to be sort of cross-legged, looking like a yogi in order to breathe. Simply just being able to walk away, find a space. I mean, certainly at the moment with the NHS and lots of other places, they're acknowledging, certainly right now, that people need to find a quiet space. They need to escape the stress, and that's no different with an open plan office. It's got a slightly different feel to it, but it's exactly the same. So I think using this breathing, using the tap-in, using these very, very quick techniques to walk away, do these techniques, compose yourself and come back to your desk, just makes you feel so much stronger. And as I said, because they rely on videos, we'll set up a video to send to people so that this makes much more sense. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And also, I think that the person who asked this also had an additional point about for people with social anxiety. So after you've spoken to your manager or colleagues, you feel anxious going over what you've said. And I think from working in open plan environments myself, I've always found it advantageous to book a room to somebody to just go and have a quiet space.
Yeah.
In the industry that we predominantly work in, which is the academic publishing industry, from the International Bunches perspective, one of the big exhibitions that we have is called London Book Fair. And last year, I think it was, one of the exhibitors there had created a dark room that you could go into. So anyone that was having any kind of social anxiety, any kind of anxiety issues, or if they're autistic and they just needed to get away, there was this dark room that you could literally walk into and just take a moment yourself and just reset and then go out there into the crowd again. And I mean, employers have a huge amount of responsibility for their staff, and could equip you and give you an area where you can just take this time, or give you the option, you know, that you can just go off and walk from your desk and go outside and get some fresh air. Though you feel like you shouldn't, because everyone's going to look and everyone's going to.
You have to.
But yeah, absolutely, you have.
Again, like I said earlier, it's about being kind to yourself, and that's the biggest part of stress management for me. is don't forget yourself.
And you work better, don't you?
You
You're going to
do.
be more productive if you're better.
Yeah.
Wearing earphones, I've always found that's helped. I mean, some companies are a little bit funny about this, but I found that if I wear earphones, I listen to music that I love, that I know I really like, or I listen to a podcast or an audiobook, something, because I like to do 10 things at once. Something that makes me happy, that is to help me in that kind of open plan. And the problem is, with many clients that we speak to, they will say, God, the office is really quiet today, because nobody wants to say anything or speak, and they don't even get on the phone. And when they go on Skype or Teams or whatever, they go into the room because they don't want to disturb anybody. And I'm like, oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. And going back to what you said about autism, I teach interview skills as part of an employability skills program. And we've been teaching, or I have recently been teaching, I've had 4 learners with autism. And even in the classroom environment, which was open plan, I had to adjust the environment. So for some of them, the lighting was too bad. I'd have to reduce the lighting and explain to everyone, you know, I'm going to reduce the lighting to protect people's eyes, because we're oversensitized. You know, we've got so much going on in an open plan office. And I did the tap-in technique with one of my learners who is autistic. And she sent me an email actually last week and said, Louise, it's brilliant. For her, she likes routine. She likes a set structure. And this tap-in technique that I'm going to give is very, very structured. It only lasts about 30 seconds. But she said that she's already using it in her own life to manage everyday stress, and it's really working. So, you know, even though they might sound a bit fluffy, they're really not fluffy. They're great techniques that can help people in most situations.
Right, we've got one more that I'm going to cover here. We have some more, but we're going to reach out to you directly. If you do have any questions that you want to send to us directly, just do it in the chat here, or you've got our email addresses, and I might go into my email and see that I've had, you know, things come through. And so the other question that I wanted to just cover here, just to end the session, was what are some of the fastest ways to minimize stress when you have limited time?
Right, okay. So the fastest one is tapping, which I'm going to give that technique for. Not just the K27, that's one of them, K27s. There's another one, it's called triangle. I'm going to give you that, comes from thought field therapy, but it's very, very quick. Probably about 30 seconds, and it's the one that I use with autism. It's the one I use with PTSD. It's part of an overall therapy, but it's a great take home, okay? 30 seconds, you can do that, and you can just go to the toilet and do that. Breathing is the fastest one because it does calm down our neurological system, which when we go into fight and flight mode, all our system is flooded with hormones that tell us we're in stress. And it can take people a long time to calm down. And I think because of the virus at the moment, people are in a constant state of stress. So they're not reducing that fight and flight quickly enough. And breathing's key. You know, if you want to calm yourself down of any situation, even in all the therapies I do, I will always say to somebody before we even start, certainly if they're anxious, is let's focus on your breathing. So we might do some counted breathing, and I'll teach people some breathing techniques. You know, even just when we're breathing in, just take a nice deep breath in, and even when we're breathing out, and people take that for granted, breathe out slowly. And you'll see that with people when they're anxious, they can't breathe out slowly, it's just out, and there it is. So I often tell people to often purse the lips as if they're blowing into like a trumpet or something, and literally that sort of restricts the breath out. It stops it being so fast. So often with patients under stress, I've literally got them to breathe in nice and slowly, and I've counted with them, but they can do that themselves. Stop the breath, so hold the breath for a couple of seconds, breathe out nice and slowly, and then you'll eventually just get back into a quicker rhythm. So I think so breathing and tapping for me are the 2 quickest ones.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise, so much. And thank you to those of you that stayed with us till the end as well. Really, really appreciate. Do get in contact. You can speak to Louise directly. We work in collaboration on things. So she does things virtually if you're not in the UK. She is based, as I mentioned, in South Wales, in Barry. I'm not even going to pretend to do a Welsh accent. I live in Wales, and I can see that I've got a fellow, a friend on here who lives in Wales too. Yes, thank you guys so much. If there is anything else that you want to know, let us know. We do have other webinars next week. We've got Nathan Perugia, and we're going to be talking about motivation. He ran 27 marathons in 27 European countries in 7 consecutive days. Now you need motivation to do that.
Yeah.
That's not my kind of thing, but you know, you can tell. Well, you can't really. I could stand up, but I'm not going to. There are lots of other webinars. Just go to internationalbrunch.com/webinars and you'll find other ones. They're all free, and Nathan's my business coach as well. So yeah, Louise, you've been mega. Thank you so much. And I streamed live to YouTube, not Facebook. I was having some
brilliant
with Facebook. Don't know what was going on. So go live on YouTube.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, amazing, hey? So thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it, and wishing you all the best. And Louise, I'll speak to you in just a moment.
Absolutely. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.